Want me to read it?
You can read a word and then I can read a word and then we can just
And that would make
it like
everyone
a rap,
crazy.
right? How many people would unsubscribe right now if we did that?
Hi everyone, it's the Book Cougars, two middle-aged women on the hunt for a good read. I'm Emily.
And I'm Chris. And we are here with our Friday reads.
For those of you who've been tagging along with us for a while, you know that we are focusing on ghost stories in 2025, and The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson is our first quarter read-along. And we're right in mid-first quarter, so we're both doing this as our Friday read.
Yeah, super happy to be dipping into this one. It's a reread for me, but it always feels fresh and new for some reason, even though it does feel like it's visiting an old friend, because the first paragraph is, I think, one of the best paragraphs ever. Do you want to read it?
Sure. Do you want me to read it, or you want to read it? You want me to read it?
You can read a word and then I can read a word and then we can just
and that would make
it like
everyone
a rap,
crazy.
Right? How many people would unsubscribe right now if we did that?
No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Do you want to go, or you want me to?
Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. It had stood so for 80 years and might stand for 80 more.
Within, walls continued upright, bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there walked alone.
So good.
Her writing is so good, and it's interesting because I am reading, if I can find it, buried in our stacks of books. I am also doing the companion read we've talked about of Shirley Jackson, A Rather Haunted Life, which is a biography of Shirley Jackson by Ruth Franklin. Mm-hmm. And she talks a lot about architecture and houses and Shirley Jackson's family history around that. And so I had started this, just the introduction and I think the first chapter. And then when I started reading this, I'm like, oh yeah, houses. And that first paragraph describes the house so well.
Yeah, love it.
I'm also listening to the audiobook, and I was telling Chris that I actually started with the audiobook because I had a big day of driving yesterday and got about, I think, 30% in. Mm-hmm. And then I just went home and started right at page 1 and started reading it, and I got so much more out of reading it. It was fun to listen, mm-hmm. but this is definitely a book I feel like you need to get in and really look at each sentence.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Yeah, it's a fantastic story and great writing. Yeah. And it's a pretty short book as well, although it doesn't feel like it. It feels like when you read that last page, you feel like you've just been through something hefty.
Yeah. It's I can't wait to talk about it. We have a Zoom conversation with listeners on Sunday.
Yeah.
So The Haunting of Hill House, Shirley Jackson.
And I'm reading did I just cut you off?
No.
Okay. I'm reading an edition from the Stephen King Horror Library. And this book, I think there was like 10 books in this series. And I think if this wasn't the first one, it was in the top 3.
And it has an introduction by Stephen King, which is very cool.
He wrote an introduction, and get this. Let me just start this. There are haunted house stories beyond numbering, most of them not very good. In quotation marks, he says, The Cellar by Richard Lehman is one example of the less successful breed. Period. End of parenthesis. Like, why would you list something that's not a good example?
I think just to throw shade.
To show shade, right? Is that a friend of his?
Maybe there's some reason, or not a friend anymore.
Right? I was just like, Stephen King, you are an enigma sometimes, and I love you. But I read that twice, and I'm like, he's talking about it not being very good, and then he lists the book. So now it makes me kind of want to read The Cellar and see how
Maybe
bad
that's why he did it. It's called reverse psychology.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, anyway, it's really good. Yeah. Let us know in the comments below if you've ever read it. We'd love to know how you feel about it.
Absolutely. And you are also reading something else, right?
Yes, I got an advanced reader copy of On Muscle, The Stuff That Moves Us and Why It Matters by Bonnie Tsui. And she wrote Why We Swim, which is a group of essays about why we swim. And she went back and kind of looked at it in history and then what it means to her. And I'm a swimmer too, so I really enjoyed that book. This is, as you might imagine from the title, about muscle and its importance. And how we use our muscles. And I've not started it yet. I can't wait to dig in. Thank you to Algonquin for sending it to us. And this pubs on April 22nd.
Nice.
Yeah.
Does she talk about sphincters? Do you know? Sphincter muscles? I mean, the round muscles or there's such a unique thing. I just ask about that because there was a book on muscles at where I work, at the library where I work. And I couldn't locate it, but it had information about whales' blowholes, which I had heard are a sphincter muscle, you know. But I couldn't locate the book, so I'm still wondering about whales' blowholes and the muscles that contribute to that.
Well, if I come across that in this book, I'll let you know. I'm giggling because when my son was in elementary school, his teacher once said, when you get nervous, your sphincter goes, "Woo!" And that was like his favorite line for like 5 years. Jacob would just walk around the house saying, when you get nervous, your sphincter goes, "Ah!" So that's immediately where my mind wandered when you said that word.
Excellent.
But I will let you know if she goes into that. It is an important muscle.
It is. And we
Yes.
have several of them on our bodies. So
Yes. There you have it.
All right. So another book that is a Friday read, and one that I have fallen behind on already, is Swann's Way by Marcel Proust. I'm reading this with a group of readers that Robin from Sacramento got together. I think most of us are newbies. I haven't read any Proust yet, or certainly not Swann's Way. And I am loving the writing. It's beautiful. Very clear prose, but as I said on a recent episode on the podcast, it's stream of consciousness. You know, he's talking about his memories, and so you know how it is when you're relaying a memory, it just leads to something else. And so I have found that I can read about 10 pages at a time before my brain is too tired to keep going on and paying that kind of attention.
Yeah.
Because it starts off with him talking a lot about his childhood bedroom. But then he's talking about these adults and these other people and different times. And so I have to go, whoa, let's go back to that last paragraph and pick up again and take off from there. So I'm really enjoying what I have read. And I plan to try to keep pace with the reading schedule that Robin has set off or has created for us, which is a really decent reading schedule. It is about 10 pages a day, I think, is what it comes out to.
But it's every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And I have not been reading every day.
Yeah.
But I will. And it's, it's kind of a thicker book. So we'll see. Yeah, it's over 400 pages. Have you read Proust? Have you read all of this? What is it? What is it called? In Search of Lost Time is what the complete book is called, but it's like 7 or 8 volumes.
Yeah.
So if you have read the whole shebang, that would be interesting to hear about your experience.
Yeah. Do we have anything else to share?
Oh, so many things. I could tell you about this book that I just picked up that's on hold. So it's not a Friday read, but it's Martin Duberman's Stonewall. This is about the history of what happened at Stonewall. And I wanted to read about it because I've only read articles here and there. And it is such an important part of particularly LGBTQ, equal rights and justice, social justice. But also the woman you see right here, that's Marsha P. Johnson. And then over here, I can't see my finger, that's Sylvia Rivera. And they were two drag queens who were really instrumental in initiating the backlash, not the backlash, the resistance to the police who would regularly do raids on gay bars. And they just had enough. And that kind of kicked off the modern gay rights movement as we know it. And I should say, I'm starting to try and say not gay rights, but like equality, equal rights, because it's not like LGBT folks are looking for extra rights. They just want the same rights as everybody else. Yeah. So I will be reading this in the coming weeks. I got it from the library. They interlibrary loaned it for me. And if I get into it, I'll probably order a copy for myself, because I'll probably want to underline things and annotate things and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the definitive story of the LGBTQ rights uprising that changed America.
Good.
Yeah.
I just want to show one other one. I don't know if I'm going to get to this weekend. I love the cover of this. It's called Tilda is Visible by Jane Tara. I believe this was originally published in Australia and has now found a publisher stateside. This comes out in just a couple of weeks, February 25th. February is such a short month. It goes by so quickly.
It does.
And the premise of this, I think it's kind of like poking fun at how older women say they are invisible. You know, we can get away with anything, which I kind of don't mind once we've lived a certain kind of life. But it starts with her waking up and like one of her fingers is missing, and then, you know, her hair, she can't see her hair, and she goes to the doctor and they're like, oh, you're becoming invisible. So I am curious about, I mean, it's called Tilda is Visible, but I think the premise is she's becoming invisible, so a little bit of a play on words with the title.
Yes.
I think it's going to be very funny, and I'm kind of in the mood for a little humor with my reading.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
And thank you to Crown for sending us this advanced reader copy.
nice.
Tell us what you're reading. We would really like to know in the comments down below. And are you reading any ghost stories? We're going to ask you that question all year.
All year, yeah, because
Yeah.
we want good ghost recommendations.
Yes.
And, you know, haunted houses.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be fun to explore all the different like subgenres of
Yes.
ghost stories, you know, because there are a lot of them.
Yes,
I'm
indeed.
talking about humor. We do have a humorous ghost story on our bingo card, which we'll talk about more probably next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look for that.
All right, everybody. Happy reading.